Wow, it's good to be here for the fourth time. Wow, crazy. I didn't expect to be here, honestly, but I'm here again, and I'm super glad to be here. So, today I will talk about code reviews. This is my fourth different talk. It's hard to come up with 4 different talk ideas, let alone one. So, use the hashtag Laracon EU, tag me. Oh shit, I get my first notifications. Thanks for tweeting. Let me disable this. Okay, let's talk about code reviews. You can follow me on this Twitter hashtag handle and tweet with this hashtag and the Laracon EU handle as well. So my name is Hannes, as Sean introduced me, and I can describe myself with a couple of emoji characters. The first one, the Belgian flag, because I'm a Belgian, which is just south of this country. So I can come here by 1-hour train ride, super efficient. I like to swim, cycle, and run. So I have these nasty tan lines. Most of the developers don't have that. I'm kind of ashamed by them. Anyway, so let's skip my personal stuff and let's get to the topic. Code reviews beyond code style. A lot of code reviews are like, the comma here and the braces there, I don't like it. People argue over stuff that doesn't matter in a code review. So let's talk about what a code review is, basically. A code review is someone writing code and someone else writing it off, like saying, I approve this. It ticks off all the boxes, and I agree with it. So that's a code review. Anyone can do that. Anyone can write the code. Could be an office clerk writing some markdown files with company rules and stuff, and someone else approving with it. Could be the CTO, could be the CEO, could be the most junior developer in the company. Anyone can do it. Anyone can write code and review code. We're going to assume we're using Git here. Most of us use Git, I hope. So everything will be Git-based. Git commits, PRs, stuff like that. This is a little chart that describes how a code review evolves. First, a writer writes some code, makes some Git commits, some changes. A commit is a change in a file or multiple files. The commits are being shown to someone else, could be a reviewer, could be on GitHub, could be anywhere, and someone else is going to review those commits and is going to comment on them, either ask some questions or request some changes, or maybe just give a thumbs up because it's good. Depending on those changes and questions, the writer is going to view those commits, the review, and is going to reply on that, answer some questions, maybe even push some more commits to fix what is wrong. And this process goes on and on and on until the reviewer is happy to sign off the pull request, and that the person is going to approve it. If you do this fast enough, it starts to feel like pair programming. You're constantly giving feedback on what is coming in, and you're constantly making more Git commits to make sure that the other person is happy. In teams, that's great, but you can also do it in a one-man show if you're working on a project on yourself, when you're a freelancer or something. Make sure to review your code, not in your IDE, but somewhere else. Could be on GitHub itself. You can just make a pull request between 2 different branches. You can use a branching strategy, Git flow, whatever. But you can also do it in a command line before you even commit it. If you do git add -p, you're going to review every bit of chunk or diff between 2 different files, between an old file and a new file, and you can review it there before even committing it. That's way more efficient than just reviewing your own code in your IDE, because you wrote it in the IDE. You know why you changed it. So if you view it in a different perspective, you're already going to pick out some silly mistakes you made. But it somehow feels like a dog walking itself. It doesn't really work. You're not going to spot mistakes that someone else will spot, because you have done all the reasoning behind it. You won't do the thinking twice. You will just look at the lines that have changed and just spot some syntax mistakes maybe, or a spelling mistake. That's it. So why should you spend time on that? A lot of people ask me these questions. it seems like a lot of time wasted and a lot of time not writing code in your IDE. Just like some people say that meetings are useless or having conversation is a waste of time. All the time that is working is in your IDE and programming. That's not true. Spending time outside of your IDE is also working. For someone who is writing the code, who is submitting commits, it's efficient because, or more efficient because you can deliver better code because of the feedback loop. You're going to start thinking about your code and how someone else is going to look at it. Is it readable? Is it readable to myself in 5 months' time? Is it readable to my junior developer who is joining the team tomorrow? You're going to feel more responsible about your own code. You're going to be more defensive in programming. So if you spec out a pull request, you're going to feel more proud about what you did, about the code changes that you're going to show to your peers. It's also useful to spend time on doing code reviews for someone else who is actually doing the code review. Because you basically can learn from anyone, even the most junior developer in your company. There's a lot of functions in PHP. I still don't know all of them, even by programming. I can still review a pull request by the most junior developer ever and learn something new. You also start to learn how other people tackle some problems. You might learn some new techniques there. It's also useful for management, because people who are writing code that is being constantly evaluated by others are starting to feel more proud about the code, and they're starting to feel more adaptive. Their code will be ready for change. So the management should be happy with you spending time on code reviews, because they're always ready for change. When the client wants something new, when the management wants a new feature, they're always ready. And it also raises the level of everyone in the team. Even the most junior people in the team or the most senior members of the team, they're all learning from each other. They're just generally raising the bar of the level of the team. So better code is more maintainable code, and more maintainable code is obtained by doing code reviews, by using a feedback cycle, and that is doing a code review. Don't be this PHP CEO. Having a feedback cycle and having someone else taking a look at your code before deploying it is actually making your application better. So when you're actually doing a pull request, this code review stuff, when you start to do it, things like that, some people think, oh, this is just coding and then occasionally just making a pull request and someone else will take a look at it. No, it starts actually with an issue. It starts with a problem. It starts with a Jira ticket. You first need to identify what needs to be changed. Have some time outside of the IDE, talking to other people. Identify the problem, ask some questions, and spec out what needs to be changed. Spec out the problem. What is expected? Only when you have a full grasp of what needs to be changed or what the problem is, then you can start coding. I like tests first. So I write some tests first and I commit them. The tests fail because I spec'd out something that needs to be changed or added. And it's not there yet. So I first create a test and I make failing tests. Then I start working towards making all the tests go green again. I send some more commits and I even push them to GitHub. I push them to GitHub because then when my computer will fall into the ocean, I still have all my work done. When I go to sleep at night, but my tests are not green yet, I still have a branch on GitHub that's red, and I can just pull it down again. So I make some atomic commits. That's super useful for later reference. When someone else is trying to follow your reasoning. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. So you're doing atomic commits to make some improvements. adding Vreken tests, adding a new CLI endpoint, adding a new endpoint, adding a new, or just as simple as renaming a variable. You can rename a variable, commit it. You can remove some conditionals or inline something, commit it. That helps with someone else following your reasoning, your thinking process. Or when you improve some code styling, I know this wasn't going to be about code styling, but if you do some code style fixes, commit that. Code style fixes are not functional changes, so commit them separately, so someone else can just skip that when they're reviewing it. And then commit it with a commit message that basically says CS fixing, or rename this variable. So I talked about tests, I talked about code style, I talked about atomic commits, and I talked about, basically stuff, tests, and code style that can be automated. If you push it to GitHub and you connect style CI to it, or Travis CI with PHP unit tests, or whatever test suite you have, you can basically make a build of every single commit that you push, and you can have a constant stream of how your branch is doing. So that's the last step, creating a pull request. Your branch is ready, you pushed every single commit that you had, and you're ready to make a pull request. There's a big form here, and there's a reason why it's a big form. Some people just type in 3 letters and click create pull request and be done with it, but I actually spend a lot more time in this view than most others do. First off, the title. The title should help with finding your issue in a list of, or finding your pull request in a list of open pull requests. It should stand out in front of a list. You should be able to find it quickly. Then there's the big text area. It's big for a reason. Some people leave it empty. I hate that when they do that. I just fill it with my changelog for first. So I use a changelog called keepachangelog.com, and it just said that changelog just says what has been added, what has been changed, what has been removed, so I can go back and quickly see what this pull request has done without actually looking at the code. After that, I add some more stuff, like a link to the issue, a link to the Jira ticket. I document what I changed, why I changed it, what my reasoning was. I document, like, I changed it in this way, so it's agile to change when the client changes his mind again. I describe some decisions I made. I describe my design patterns. I describe why I removed some stuff. And then, last but not least, I use this stuff on the right. I assign some people. And that's the last step. And that just means my work here is done, and someone else can step in and start reviewing it. So what should someone on the other side of the fence do? What should some reviewer do? Or let's first start what they should not do. They should not argue about code style. Use a linting tool. Use style CI. Everything that can be automated should be automated. Something that's automated, but you won't think it is actually automated, that is merge conflicts, sorry. So GitHub will actually tell you when something is conflicting. That is an automated thing. That's already there for you. You don't have to set up anything for it. So that's automated. Notifying about duplicated code. You see someone drying out code, like Jeroen said. Drying out code means don't repeat yourself. Stop repeating, like abstracting everything so it's never repeated. Not a single line is repeated. I actually don't mind if something is repeated. If it's for clarity, then it's fine. If your code is more readable, then it's fine. Don't complain about like 2 lines that are the same in 2 different files. Don't complain about that. If it's readable, it's fine. There's some tools that check your code duplication, like Scrutinizer CI. They will lower the score, the value of your code, but that's okay, as long as it's not skyrocketing or plumbing, whatever you want to see the graph go like. If it's pretty constant, you shouldn't complain about that. It's pretty good. Keep track of technical debt. You can look at code and see, maybe that's going to introduce some legacy, but we're okay for now as long as we keep track of the legacy. As long as we know in our heads, like, this is still here and it might cause us some problem down the road, then it's okay. You don't need to complain about that when it's reasonable. What you should also not do as a reviewer is rediscuss the issue. Someone who has done the work properly has already talked to all the actors and all the people in the company that are involved in this pull request or in this change, and they should have asked all the right questions. Obviously, if they didn't do that, then you should basically close the pull request and say start the discussion again and ask some more questions about the problem that needs to be solved. So that's stuff you basically shouldn't do. Now let's talk about the things that you should do as a reviewer. The big form, it's filled in, so you should read every single thing. The title, the description, read the linked Jira ticket or issue, read the discussion there, read all the reasoning why something has changed. Look at the reasons why they used some kind of design pattern and why not. And then go look at the code. That's the last step. When you have read everything, go look at the code changes and start looking for stuff that computers can't tell you, like the naming of a variable. Is that okay? Will I be able to understand what the value will be of that variable? Look at design patterns. Is this implemented well? For example, some design patterns require some interfaces. Are some classes missing an implements interface? Look at how clear the code is. Is it readable? Will you be able to alter the code 2 or 3 months down the line? Will you be able to see what the code is actually doing? If not, if one of those things is missing or is wrong, then you should ask some questions. Add some comments to the code to ask, why is this named like this? Or what is the value supposed to be of this variable? Some other stuff that is harder to spot is, are we missing a migration here? Will this be able to deploy without failing? Is there something wrong? Or will this work on Windows? Stuff like that. And then you start, and then you basically use the new GitHub tools, like viewing the commits itself. You can start following the reasoning behind what the code writer has been doing. I hated that the previous button just jumps. They fixed that by now, but so yeah, follow the individual commits, look at the commit messages, and follow how the other programmer has been implementing stuff. And then add some comments. And then learn how to use the GitHub review feature. The GitHub review feature allows you to type comments, and then at the end, when you reach the final commit, then you can start to submit that review. When you've typed some comments, the author of the pull request will not get a notification of your comments before you've finally submit the review. So if you have a couple of comments, you can top it off with a general comment like, I like what you did here, but there's some more remarks, and if we fix them, then we can move on and merge this pull request. So you can comment, approve, or request some more changes. So learn how to use this tool called the review flow. So we shouldn't argue about code style, in a pull request at least, but I would like you to argue about code style up front, before even making a pull request. Make it a discussion in the company. Talk about why are you using a code style standard recommendation, PSR2, or maybe you should go one step further and use Laravel code style if you like that, or Symfony code style. And maybe even you can enforce some more rules on top of that if you use a tool like PHP CS Fixer. Set everything up in Style CI or Travis CI. Make some checks that basically enforce the code style. And then you will never have to discuss code style again. I like to add some more rules on top of Symfony code style, etc. Basically, I'm going to show you a couple of diffs, and I would like you to say whether the left one or the right one is the most readable. They're basically the same changes, but there's some more code style than you would think. What is the most readable? Wow, this is not clear. OK, but there's a minus and a plus to tell you whether a line has been added or removed. So the left one is actually the most readable. Why? Because on the right one, there's one line which has been removed and re-added with a simple comma. So if you use multi-line arrays, I like to enforce trailing commas on every single line, even the last one, although they're not required. But I like them because it makes my life easier as a person who is doing a lot of code reviews, because I don't have to wrap my mind around having one line removed and two lines added, and then the functional change is basically that one line has been added only. So enforce some more code style rules like this one, and then your life will become a lot more easier to review some code and to basically focus on the functional changes of a diff. The next one is this. What's the easiest to see? What's the easiest to spot the functional change? The right one, right? If you align some stuff and you remove the longest line or add a longer line, then you will always run into problems. You will have to realign everything. If you align a big JSON file or a config file, you will have to realign every single line, and it's super hard to spot what has actually changed. So if you don't align stuff, it's way easier to see that this longer key has been changed to changed key. The next one is this. It's not required to have a single line code block wrapped by curly braces, but if you wrap them anyway, you don't have to add these curly braces when you add a second line to the code block. Super simple. It's coding 101. The same is true with braces for a new constructor. So if you new up a new item, it is valid in PHP to just leave off the braces, but I like to add them, or even, I like to add them so that I don't have to think about what was this before and what has actually changed. I can just see that, oh, there's a new constructor argument. That's it. I was in a project recently, and I saw these / end of file at the end of every single file, and that just blew my mind. Why would you do that? Just end the file. Your IDE knows it's the end of the file. What kind of IDE would require this? Why would you ever add this? And then there's this. No new line at the end of the file. This just distracts me. this red icon, as a human, you would think that there's something wrong here. But basically, a new empty line has been added. So if you add all those rules that just enforce that, add editor config or use style CI and enforce that, add some extra rules, it just makes your life as a reviewer a lot easier. You don't have to think about, what is this symbol? Why is it there? You can just focus on the functional changes of a PR. You don't have to worry about any specs on your screen or warning symbols. So when you're talking or adding comments to a PR, you should also mind your language. There's a lot of hate in PRs sometimes, especially open source PRs. But just keep it down. We're all people. At the end of the day, we are all programmers, and we want to live with each other, and we want to go to conferences and be able to look at into each other's eyes and shake hands. And we want to be happy as a programmer. So we want to motivate each other instead of breaking each other down. When you're inside a company, you want to work with these people day in, day out. You want to work with them for the next months or years. So mind your language. Some people write big comments like, I'm a big fan of your code. Calm down, calm down. Just keep the personal stuff out of it, and just focus on the code. This is an alligator, or a crocodile, or whatever. It's part of the reptile family, and those are the oldest creatures on planet Earth, and they've been around for a long time, and we actually inherit part of our brain from reptiles, and it's called the Reptile Brain, and it has a few basic functions. If you get attacked, you attack back. The same is true for humans. If we are being attacked, also verbally, we will start to defend ourselves and attack back. So when you're giving feedback on a piece of code or on a diff, we want to keep it as impersonal as possible and not say, you are a moron because you did this or did that, or you definitely don't know how to name a variable, or you're just messing up this project. Just don't attack someone. Don't do that. You want to work with them. And if you don't know how to avoid, if you don't know whether you're doing that or not, just think of a few simple rules to avoid that. One of those rules is to use suggestive language. Suggestive language is, instead of just saying what you think, you should first think about it, and then don't write it. That's the first rule. And then second, change it to a suggestive way that starts with maybe. Maybe if you change this variable name to this, it's easier to read. If you write that, it's never offensive. You're never going to offend someone. And if they still are offended, then maybe you should find a different person to work with. But OK, so if you use suggestive language, it's easier to not offend someone. Another way to be suggestive is to make it about yourself instead of them. If you say, I would have done this differently, and then you explain what you would have done differently, then it's about you. Then you're just expressing your opinion. You're not attacking them. That's a super easy way to avoid offending someone, even if you don't know you are offending them, or they're going to feel offended. Another sentence you can use to start something is, if you feel like, or if you just basically ask them something. Do you think renaming the variable to this or that makes it more readable, and then they can reply to that. Instead of being offended that the variable name is not optimal, you can basically ask their opinion, and they will feel valued. They won't ever feel offended. And if you have to give them feedback, try using this technique. I like emoji. I like reptile emojis and shit sandwiches. This is the shit sandwich. This is not one emoji, but I just pasted two on top of each other. So it's a sandwich with shit in between. And it's a way to give feedback to others without offending them. And the way you do it is you start off with a soft bun on the plate, and you start petting them and say, like, I know you've done a couple of hard days or hours on this pull request. I know you've given it your all, but you need to add something in between the two layers, the actual feedback. Still, you use the suggestive language. Maybe if you talk to this person in our company, he knows a lot about Elasticsearch. We can transform this query so it's actually going optimal and not like shit. Then we can maybe finish this pull request and ship an Elasticsearch query that is not going to ruin our production. And then you still have to top it off with a soft bun. But I'm super positive that we can work together and finish this PR. So that's a shit sandwich technique. The problem with this is, if you know this technique and someone uses it against you, but if someone uses this against you, never ever be offended, because they're actually the best people in your company. They just know how to give you good feedback. That's my rule. And then to finish it off, basically when you approve it, use some more emoji, use a GIF. I feel sorry for the person holding the camera. Let me play it again. Yeah, just use a GIF, make it a little bit more fun to work with each other, and still use the GitHub feedback or the review stuff to inform that you actually approve this, and then we can continue. This is kind of the last step in a pull request. Everything is green. Your peers have approved it. Every build, like code style, is checked. The tests are green. And then what I talked about earlier, there's no conflict. That's also an automatic check provided by GitHub. Then the button is green, and you can actually click it, I hope. The question is, who should click this button? If you have any opinions, you can shout. Doesn't matter. Exactly. So it doesn't matter. Basically, I work in a team with people in different time zones, and it basically comes down to this. If you click the button and it triggers a deploy, you should be responsible for fixing the build or fixing the deploy if something goes wrong. That's it. Just keep an eye out on Sentry or Bugsnag for incoming errors, and be ready to fix it when something went wrong. Also, there's command line instructions, the link there, down there. If you're not super confident that it actually works or it needs more tests, clone it or check it out locally and just run it. That's the best technique to be super confident that it won't break in production or when you deploy it to any staging environment. So let's quickly wrap it up. We still have time. A code review is basically someone else signing off changes so that you can be confident that you have a shared responsibility about the code style and the quality of the code. and that it's going to be shipped off to production, and whoever merged the pull request will be responsible of fixing it. Tell your management that you want to spend time on that, and tell them why, because it basically improves the code, improves the product, and yeah, your code is going to be ready for change. Add some checks to CI, add some CI, style checks, so that you will never have to argue about code style again. When you're doing code reviews, ask a lot of questions. I always ask a lot. Marco Pivetto also asks a lot of questions on open source pull requests. Check for stuff that cannot be automated. If there's an AI bot that can check if a variable name is okay or a design pattern is well implemented, we might as well just go home and let AI do all our jobs. We're basically unemployed then. Give valuable feedback. Stay positive. Use a shit sandwich. And also, very important, use suggestive language, because we all love our jobs and we would all like to keep doing it. Thank you. There's lots of time for questions. There's a throwable microphone, but watch out, because if Frank throws it on your head, yeah, I don't know, I'm not responsible. There's one over there. Throw hard. Whoa. Yeah.
Is that the mic?
Yeah.
We did review where we work, and we hit problems with micromanagement, basically. People review.
Politics?
Took that.
It's
still working?
Yeah.
Took that as an excuse, well, not as an excuse, but they ended up saying this is not the way I would code things. The way the other person did code things was perfectly fine. Hello? We almost ended up losing the developer that was on the receiving end of this. So how do you balance code review with people who get a little bit too keen on things done their way and micromanaging?
Just pull the discussion out of the PR and have a group discussion in general about this, and just settle on something, make a rule about it, and then eventually merge the PR. I would not do too many politics stuff in PRs, because that just drags the PR along and then it never gets merged. So try to avoid politics in PRs, basically. Is that a reasonable answer, or?
Not really. It's more an attitude of the person that was doing it. So it's more.
Oh.
How do you get code reviews going without it leading into that micromanagement level? So I can understand the shit sandwich, and I can understand using suggestive language and everything else not to offend. But you can get into the passive-aggressive stage where somebody is quite politely saying, do things my way or the highway, and the other person doesn't want to. How do you get around those sort of issues?
It's a good question. My advice would still be to have an offline discussion with the person doing the micromanagement. We can have a discussion later. It's hard to it's hard to come up with a clear answer for now. We can have a discussion in the hallway after this talk. More questions? Down there. Can you throw it? Nice catch.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi. If the option is available, is one-on-one code review better than doing it on GitHub?
Sorry, is what better than doing it on GitHub?
One-on-one. I mean, you sit with the other person.
Oh yeah, the pair programming. Perfect. That's even better.
Even in the stage of the review?
Yeah, sure. You can. A pull request can be opened for a while, even after a pull request can be opened even from the first commit that just proves that some tests are failing. That's fine. whatever suits you best, actually. If you're happy with that, then do some pair programming, push it to GitHub, keep it alive. What works for you?
Thanks.
Sure.
Hey. First of all, love the talk. Definitely going to use the shit sandwich term. You just mentioned that you set up a rule and everybody are using that rule. What do you use to write down the rules and that new developers.com can reach them easily without another argument or discussion or whatever?
We use Markdown files just on a docs repository on GitHub. Could be a wiki on, what's it called? Atlassian or whatever. Could be, there's a tool called Git Book, and we use that. A Git Book is an NPM package that compiles a lot of MD files, Markdown files, into a book. And then you can read the book. It's like an ebook, and you can even export it to PDF, I guess. So there's a ton of tools to write stuff down. You can even do it in Google Docs, whatever suits you.
Okay.
There's one more question here. I suggest you stand up and throw. Oh, too far.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Hi.
So this is a question about reviewer. Should the reviewer run the code? For example, me as a reviewer, I can just open the GitHub, just scroll the page and see, oh, it's okay. Or should I switch to the branch or run all migrations and check the task and see it's okay or not?
Ideally, you would have integration tests to cover that. If you don't, it's better to check out the code and see if it runs. That's the short answer.
Okay, thanks.
There's more over there. Hi.
Hi. Just a comment on the shit sandwich, which I think is.
Are you giving feedback to me, or?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to give some positive feedback to you on the shit sandwich. I think it's shit.
Okay.
I think
sure,
if you have
why?
shit to say, sugarcoating it with a nice bun and a top and bottom is not going to do anything except cloud what you actually mean. If you have shit to say, then you should, in my opinion, make it less shitty and make it more constructive. Sure. And saying, oh, I still respect you as a developer, and I think you've really gone far. And everything. Yeah. No, I'm concerned that the performance issues will not be covered by this, or we will probably, in my opinion, reach some issues here. But if you have shit to say, then maybe you should try and rephrase it so it's not shit.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, otherwise we get into this whole. I have to have 5 lines at the top saying I still like you. Yeah. It's not bad, and this has nothing to do with the party yesterday. And I know you like the same girl as I do, but it's not that the reason why. Come on, just say it in a constructive tone. I really like that, and stick to the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can code it with some buns and some sugar stuff, but you're right. You shouldn't overdo it, but you still want to motivate them to continue working on it.
Definitely, yes.
Actually, so we agree, right? Okay.
I think we agree on the basics, but I just don't like the shit. It still tastes like shit.
Thanks for the shit.
Hi.
Hi.
Actually, 2 questions. One of them is, you mentioned the Git book or the rules. How do you communicate changes? Because it's not a static thing, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Pull requests. You make a pull request for the Markdown files, and you make sure everyone signs them off.
And who does the review for those changes?
Everyone.
Okay. And the other one is...
I've seen that being done, so...
Okay.
But there's other ways too. Just you can also make a new file and then just send it via email, whatever. Actually, find something that works for you and then go from there.
And how
second
do you?
Question?
Second question is, how do you make sure people don't get pissed off of too many rules? Because I was this kind of guy who made too many rules, and the team just got pissed off. That was my impression, definite impression.
Good question. Yeah, that's a great question.
Maybe discuss in the hall.
Maybe make a rule to not make too many rules. I'm happy to discuss that with you. I don't know yet, so if you have a suggestion.
Okay.
Sorry? Add an explanation to the rules. Yeah, of course, rules should be accompanied by an example why this rule is being introduced. Rules shouldn't be there just to be there. There should be a reason for them to be there. If there's no reason for a rule to be there, then the rule should go out. Is that an answer to your question?
Yes.
Kind of? Okay. No more questions? Okay, I think we can wrap it up then. Thanks.